So we got the ABC shows out of the way. Let's move over to Netflix.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the MrEliMac show. I'm your host, MrEliMac, and we are back with another pitch this video. And last week I did What If the MCU was the DCCU and just did all the ABC shows that existed sort of in the MCU, maybe, I don't know, it's coin toss nowadays. So now I'm going to move over to the other sort of massive area where the TV shows were, which were the Netflix shows for the MCU series, which I am now going to give you a little bit more of the context. It is very dedicated to the heroes known as the Titans, aka the Teen Titans if you know your history in that sort of thing. And so that's sort of what is the inspiration for the Netflix side of things, where instead of it's the Defenders, this time it's the Titans. Also, for the one person that was able to catch it, I sort of let slip what is one of the Hulu shows, and that was all completely by accident. I didn't even notice I said it until I saw that comment. But again, you all know what you get to look forward to next week when I do the Hulu shows. But with all that little intro out of the way, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. That way you can be up to date with all the videos I have here on the channel. Also hit the notification bell. That way you can be notified whenever a new video like this comes your way. So, I already told you right at the top, this is very much taking from Titans, or the Teen Titans, or whatever variation you want to go with. But this is very much, instead of the Defenders, it's the Titans. So we sort of got a basis on who sort of the characters are. But who are the true characters? Because there are some characters in this DCCU that I've already introduced. Like in the Batman movies, I've already introduced Dick Grayson, and that's mainly the only hero that's been introduced that is heavily attached to the Titans. And so, with all of that little preamble out of the way, let me just go ahead and get into it. So, the Daredevil Season 1 analog. I'm starting with Daredevil because he was the one that really started the Defenders. He was the one that really is sort of the precursor to all of it existing. And I'm going to talk about each show individually first because I feel like that's a lot easier to do. So I'm going to focus all of my stuff on the Daredevil analog, and then I'm going to move over to the Jessica Jones analog, and then the Luke Cage analog, and then the Iron Fist analog, and then I'll do the Defenders analog, which is the Titans, and then I'll move over to the Punisher analog. The Punisher analog will be last because he was sort of the last solo hero last solo character introduced in this large line of characters. So, to go into it, the Daredevil analog is, and I sort of spoiled it a little bit, is Nite-Wing. It is Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson's Nite-Wing will be our Daredevil analog because I just think that makes the most sense. They're both very acrobatic, and also I just like the idea of being able, before we go into the phase 4 of it all, where Dick Grayson slowly becomes Batman and all that nice stuff, I'm very much wanting to give everyone a little preview of what Dick Grayson looks like as a solo hero, as Nite-Wing, and so that's very much what we're doing here. Also, I forgot to mention this last week, I'm not going to forget this week, all of the ideas here are heavily inspired by Hector Navarro, who very much started this original idea with his friend, so I wanted to make sure to give a shout out to Hector Navarro for very much giving me all this inspiration. So, with all that main stuff out of the way, let's get into the synopsis for Season 1 of Nite-Wing, which, again, would have been released in 2015, so the synopsis is, after the events of Batman 3, which led to the death of Jason Todd Robin, Dick Grayson, Nite-Wing, left Gotham for a chance to reflect on his life as a hero. He moved to Bloodhaven, not wanting to be too far from Gotham. He gets a job as a police officer after he finishes at the police academy. Though he tries to stop crime as a police officer, Roland Desmond, aka Blockbuster, proves to be a superior foe. Dick decides the only way he can stop Blockbuster is by putting the suit back on and becoming Nite-Wing. So very much in the third Batman movie, he became Nite-Wing. That's sort of where we get the introduction of Nite-Wing. And this is the first time we're actually going into it with him as Nite-Wing. And I very much stated right there, the main antagonist is Blockbuster, who, for Dick Grayson's Nite-Wing, is very much the kingpin of Bloodhaven. And I really wanted to set it up separate instead of using Penguin as sort of the kingpin analog, which Penguin was in the second Batman movie, and so I wanted to move away from a character like the Penguin. So I looked at very much all of Nite-Wing's sort of rogues gallery, his own rogues gallery, and the one that really stood out to being like the crime boss character was Blockbuster. So I really much wanted to focus on Blockbuster as our main antagonist, but I also have other characters as well. One of the major antagonists is Chief Delmore Redhorn, who is someone that works under Blockbuster as sort of a corrupt police officer. He's also Dick Grayson's superior, so we get that corrupt official in there. Another one is a character known as Stallion, who is another sort of henchman of Blockbuster, but he has sort of like a cowboy theme. So he's an antagonist that actually dies in this show. He's someone that I very much look at as sort of the Russian character, the Russian mobsters. He's sort of that type of character. And then I wanted a female antagonist as well, so I had Lady Vic sort of also as an assassin slash mercenary slash henchwoman of Blockbuster, and that's very much sort of when it comes to the main antagonist. It's Blockbuster, Chief Delmore Redhorn, Stallion, and Lady Vic. Those are sort of the antagonistic forces that Nite-Wing is having to fight off against to take down Blockbuster. But we do have the supporting cast of Bridget Clancy, who is sort of the landlord. I think she was the landlord of the apartment complex that Dick Grayson is living in, and she even notices that, hey, you're the kid that lived with Bruce Wayne. Why are you living here in this sort of small apartment complex? And he's like, I just wanted to get away from living in a house like that, living in such a big establishment like that. And also, this series is set before the separation of Batman and Superman from the Justice League, and very much before the Tower of Babel storyline, so things are still sort of positive in the Justice League. So we're still living with a positive Justice League, but just Dick Grayson, after the death of Jason Todd, is really trying to get away from the idea of being a vigilante. He's trying not to be a vigilante. He's trying to do things the right way, especially with his partner, Amy Rohrbach, who is also in the show as a major supporting character. I didn't really give Nite-Wing any sort of major love interest in the show. I wanted to very much dedicate this to sort of Nite-Wing is our main hero, and I wanted to focus him being a hero and trying to not go away from that, especially since in my universe his main love interest is Barbara Gordon, and I really wanted them to sort of have a minor falling out, and that's why he's very much staying away from Gotham. That's why he's in Bloodhaven and not in Gotham. Another major character who'd be a major supporting cast member is Ganon Malloy. I hope I pronounced that name right from the comics. And sort of he's another police officer that's trying to take down Blockbuster. He's very much, in my mind, the Ben Urich character who is trying to take down the bad guy, and he gets killed, unfortunately. And another major character is Dudley Soames. I think that's how his name is pronounced. Again, I've never heard any of these names spoken in live action or animation, so I'm just saying what I think they should be pronounced. But he becomes a major character in season 2, which when I get to season 2 I'll talk more about him, but he's also a corrupt police officer who goes down the spiral and ultimately becomes a major antagonist for Nite-Wing in season 2. But ultimately this season would end with Nite-Wing and Blockbuster getting to a big fight, and Nite-Wing taking down Blockbuster, and Blockbuster getting arrested. Lady Vic gets arrested. Chief Delmore gets fired. Again, Ganon Malloy dies in the show. But ultimately ends up with Nite-Wing getting the victory over Blockbuster, and seeing that Bloodhaven is now being protected by Nite-Wing, and him sort of, this is sort of the start of Nite-Wing sort of being able to find his way to be his own hero outside of Batman, because I've sort of, in this universe, kept Nite-Wing a little bit more attached to Batman than I think some people may like. But I wanted to very much establish that this show, and this 3-season show in Titans, is very much the way of his character being his own hero. But that's season 1. Now it's time to move over to season 2, which is sort of the introduction of another major character in Nite-Wing's sort of rogues gallery, but also a major character just in the Titans lore in general. If you understand that little reference, you'll understand who it is. So, to read over the synopsis of Nite-Wing Season 2, after stopping Blockbuster, Dick Grayson Nite-Wing continues protecting Bloodhaven. However, a mercenary known as Deathstroke is hunting police officers. Nite-Wing takes it upon himself to fight off Deathstroke, and he tries to stop a former police officer, Dudley Soames, aka Torque. So very much like how in Daredevil Season 2, there's sort of a story of two halves, and in the first half, it's very much Nite-Wing versus Deathstroke, who Deathstroke in this universe is sort of the Punisher analog. He is the one that will get his own show after this. Deathstroke will be the one who is sort of the anti-hero type, even though I'm someone that doesn't like to put Deathstroke as sort of an anti-hero character. I understand there are a lot of fans. Deathstroke has a lot of fans, and there are a lot of people that want Deathstroke to sort of be an anti-hero type character, so I'm understanding that I have to put some of my own bias to the side and sort of work with how the show actually does, how I think it would work in that context, because I think even around this time, DC is trying to make Deathstroke more of a anti-hero character than a villain, so I'm trying to give DC some of their stuff as well. So Nite-Wing and Deathstroke are very much butting heads with each other a majority of the time, but eventually they get to an understanding and Deathstroke is able to get away. But not like go to jail, get away, but like get away. But ultimately the second half of the show is basically Torque being sort of the main antagonist, being sort of funded while he is in jail by Blockbuster. And Torque, I mentioned him in season 1, Torque is a character that has his head all the way to the back, and then he had like a gun right there, and so like the back of his body is sort of the front, and he just has a gun on his neck, even though he still carries a gun. It's so confusing. Comics are weird at times. So yeah, that's Nite-Wing trying to take down a former ally of his. And then we have Bridget Clancy, Amy Rohrbach coming back, but we also introduced characters like Hank Hogan, who is a major supporting character of Nite-Wing in the comics, and also John Law, who is someone known as Tarantula in the comics, and not the bad Tarantula that people know from the Nite-Wing comics from the early 2000s. I'm not doing that storyline at all. That does not exist in the Nite-Wing show. But John Law is a character who's sort of like a lawyer character, and I sort of wanted a lawyer character for the show since Dick Grayson is still trying to be a police officer as well as a vigilante. So I really wanted to have a character like that to be sort of someone that Dick Grayson can talk to in the law office stuff. And that's very much season 2. I'm a lot quicker doing this one because it's just Deathstroke is the first half, Torque is the second half, moving on. And that's very much, and Deathstroke would be a sort of recurring storyline throughout the season. No character dies, Torque does go to jail and Deathstroke gets away, but ultimately that's sort of what season 2 of the Nite-Wing show is. And moving on to season 3, and this season is very much takes place after the Titans limited series, but there's no reference in here to what happens in Titans, so you don't have to worry about any spoilers. Let me make sure in terms of characters, yeah, there's no sort of reference to what happens in Titans that appears in season 3, or at least in the synopsis of season 3. It's more of just stuff that happens outside of Titans, which the synopsis is: with Batman missing from Gotham, Dick Grayson, Nite-Wing, must fight off the forces of Darkseid and protect Gotham. However, Roland Desmond, aka Blockbuster, has been released from prison and hired Tad Ryerstad to frame Nite-Wing. And Tad Ryerstad is someone that comes along and calls himself Nite-Wing, saying that he is the actual Nite-Wing. And his name is actually spelled differently in the comics. It's actually Nite-Wing, and that's sort of his version of Nite-Wing. And that's sort of what I'm using as my, Bullseye analog. And we still have the recurring characters of Bridget Clancy, Amy Rohrbach, Hank Logan, John Law returning, Blockbuster, and the evil version of Nite-Wing, Tad. They are there, and they're sort of, again, the main antagonists of this story, very much beefing up that sort of villainy side, and Nite-Wing, or Tad, is able to frame Dick Grayson a lot. And again, this is taking place still in the DCCU, and me trying to show the synergy of the movies and the TV shows. So this very much is occurring after the events of Justice League Darkseid War, where the main Justice League are gone, and so Dick Grayson is sort of having to pick up the slack, going to Gotham, trying to save the day, whilst also trying to handle Bloodhaven and all that. And so a lot of stuff is happening in Dick Grayson's life to try to make everything work. And also in this season, we introduced a new character named Cheyenne Fremont, who in the comics becomes a female version of Nite-Wing, and I think she also has powers. So I very much wanted to introduce more Nite-Wing characters to show that this Nite-Wing show is very much own show, and that Dick Grayson Nite-Wing is his own character, and these are just characters that are involved. Again, though Darkseid is doing his own thing, there are moments where Blockbuster and Tad can get arrested, because I want to be able to wrap up those storylines nice and tight. But then again, Blockbuster does return in the Green Arrow show in Phase 4. Just to let everyone know, that's the thing that happens. But yeah, that's very much the Nite-Wing series. It's very much trying to take a lot of the grittiness from the Daredevil show, but also adding a little lightheartedness, because Nite-Wing is not a dark character. Nite-Wing, in my opinion, is sort of like the Spider-Man of the DC universe, mainly because him and Peter Parker share sort of a similar type of humor, and I very much want to have this sort of darker side of the DCCU have a little bit of lightness, and that's sort of why Nite-Wing is sort of the forefront of that and sort of the leader of that front. He can still have the serious dark moments whilst also being the lighthearted character that everyone knows. And I also want to push him as a character that can be a leader, and a character that can very much hold his own as a solo superhero, that when we get to the stuff in the end of Justice League Rebirth and the stuff that is leading into Phase 4, we can believe it, because we have seen it happen. And that's very much what is happening with Nite-Wing. And now we're going to move over to the Jessica Jones show analog, which can be thought of as multiple different things, but the main multiple different characters like Raven or Starfire, maybe Wonder Girl, but she hasn't been introduced yet in this universe. Oh wait, yes she has. She was introduced in Wonder Woman in the Underworld, but it's not going to be Donna Troy Wonder Girl. Instead, it is in fact Raven, because Raven is sort of someone that I look at as sort of having that darkness, sort of like Jessica Jones does, and she's a character that in my mind I think could be great to have as a solo character having her own show. And that's why I'm very much letting her have her own show. So the synopsis for Raven Season 1 is: Rachel Roth was always a loner. When she was growing up, she never fit into anything. There was something dark inside of her. Because of this darkness, the Church of Blood, led by Sebastian Blood, aka Brother Blood, tries to awaken the darkness inside of herself. She must fight them off and keep the darkness inside of her hidden from the world. And so very much you can tell right there, the main antagonist of Raven is Brother Blood. And I'm also having Mother Mayhem being a supporting antagonist. And Raven is very much, in sort of this context of the show, her main supporting characters are her foster family that she's a part of. And I know the foster family wasn't really introduced until later in the Raven storyline, but I very much wanted to give her the foster family early. That way Raven could have a support system, a sort of the dichotomy of, hey, these are the characters that are sort of on the outside of Raven's darkness, and even a support system that if Raven starts going too far into the darkness, they can sort of help her pull her back into the light. And I very much also wanted Sebastian Blood, aka Brother Blood, to be the main antagonist, because I felt like he was such a great antagonist of the dark side, of the mystical side of the Titans, that wasn't really explored in the animated show, because he was very much treated as, oh, I'm the leader of this Hive Academy, that's what I am. But in the comics, he's not really that. So I wanted to lean more into the, hey, this is the mystical side of things, and this is the magic side of things. And I wanted to show more of that, and I wanted Raven to start awakening the darkness and her magical abilities in this season. And I think having Brother Blood to be the main antagonist would be a great way to do it. I'd also mention how Brother Blood and Mother Mayhem have connections to Raven's past with her biological mother and maybe even her biological father. Start throwing hints of Trigon and stuff like that, because Trigon is a major character in this Netflix series, and I don't want to go too in depth. You'll all know when we get there, but yeah, I wanted to put in hints that Brother Blood and Mother Mayhem are more connected to Raven than she thinks, and I very much think that this is a great show to do it in. This is giving Raven her own season, or her own 3 seasons, to be a great way to do that. And so yeah, that's basically Raven Season 1, and I think it would be a fun way to have the Jessica Jones analog be Raven, and having that show be a little bit darker than sort of the other shows in this little timeline. Also, it could be a little bit trippier and show more horror elements in it to get people a little bit, have some fun for the people that are horror fans. So now, we move on to Season 2. Raven Season 2. Which, again, this one more shows what happens in Titans, but it's alright, because when we get to Titans, you'll already be a little bit spoiled on what happens anyway. So, the synopsis. After stopping her father, Rachel Roth, aka Raven, is working with Starfire to fully control her powers. However, a voodoo priest, Jean-Louis Drew, aka Hungan, I think that's how you pronounce it, if it's not, someone can correct me, tries to bring more evil to the world. Now Raven must put her powers to the test and defeat Hungan. Or Houngan, I don't know. Again, if it's wrong, someone please correct me and let me know. But very much this is a continuation of the Titan show, where I introduced Starfire in it, and Starfire is now sort of being used as Raven's main support system with her foster family, and this new villain, Jean-Louis, is very much the main antagonist, the voodoo doctor, and he's sort of trying to use more of the dark magic in the world. And this show would be coming out before Justice League Darkseid War, so we're not there yet to where Darkseid's forces are in and now they gotta work to stop them and Jean-Louis. But very much this is Raven trying to stop an evil voodoo doctor with her own powers of darkness, and Starfire is sort of there trying to help her control it. Starfire is very much used as someone that she already has control of her abilities, she already has control of her own powers, and she's trying to help Raven control her powers. And that's very much the storyline between them, whereas Jean-Louis is very much just trying to bring horror and evil and darkness into the world. Again, I know the villain isn't that great, but the villain in Jessica Jones Season 2 wasn't that great. I don't mean to make that as a cop-out, but I mean, what are you gonna do? But I very much think, again, using the horror elements that could be used for Raven is very much the direction I would use for this show. And that's very much Season 2. Moving on to Season 3, which would be coming out in 2019, and also set after Justice League Rebirth. So the synopsis for Raven Season 3 is, after Justice League Rebirth, Raven thought her darkness was finally gone. However, residual effects from the anti-life equation started manifesting inside of her, but she was able to expel her darker side. This evil Raven made it her plan to kill Raven and release her father. It is now up to Raven to finally destroy the darker side of herself. So very much, this is Raven fighting herself. This is Raven finally releasing the darkness inside of her, and the darkness manifested itself into an evil version of Raven. Just red and like with the 4 eyes on it. Sort of like how when you watch the animated series, you can see that Raven's rage in her mind is very much a red version of herself with the 4 eyes on her head. And that's very much, I wanted to manifest that in real life. And so this is very much an allegory of stopping the darkness inside of yourself and sort of trying to overcome sort of the demons in yourself, in your heart, in your head, and very much trying to take down that side of herself. Also, it's sort of, you could sort of say it's an allegory to trying to overcome any mental health issues that you may be having. And that's sort of what she's doing here, just physical form. And also we'd get a cameo from the Iron Fist analog, which I'm not going to reveal who that is, you're probably already guessing, but he would make a cameo in it because those two are sort of kept very connected in the series of Netflix characters. And so yeah, it's the basic plot for Raven Season 3 of just good Raven, who's finally overcome the darkness inside of her, trying to take down the evil version of herself. It's that simple. So now moving on to the Luke Cage analog, which is Cyborg. I think Cyborg is someone that could very much lead his own show. He was supposed to get his own movie, but that didn't happen, did it, Warner Brothers? But that's neither here nor there. I'm not going to say whether that movie should have been made or not. I'm just saying that my Luke Cage analog is Cyborg, and I think Cyborg would work very well in this little idea of this universe. And also, it just makes sense with the direction I'm going with the Titans. So, moving on to the synopsis for Cyborg Season 1, Victor Stone was a star football player in high school, but that was all in the past. Now he is just half a man. His father, Silas Stone, saved him from death with the help of his assistant, Sarah Charles. Now Victor is a cyborg. Now Victor tries to find his place in a world that won't accept him. However, he isn't the only cyborg. Robert Zeransky was turned into a cyborg by an unknown culprit. It is soon discovered that he was turned into a cyborg by Micron O. Genius, aka Gizmo. So I very much wanted to have the idea of, sort of like how in Luke Cage, it's like, this is sort of the main antagonist, but not really, this is actually the main antagonist. That's very much what I wanted to do with this season. So again, like Luke Cage did. So I'm very much introducing it as Robert Zeransky as sort of the main antagonist, who is in the Cyborg comics as sort of like an evil version of Cyborg as well. But he's not called Cyborg, he's just Robert Zeransky. And so these are two people that knew each other in the past, and sort of this is why Robert is sort of going after Cyborg and trying to go like, hey, I need you to help me. I need you to help me not turn me into a cyborg anymore. And Cyborg is like, I don't know what to do. And then that's when we get the big reveal of Gizmo is actually the main antagonist. And Gizmo is not working alone. He actually has someone by his side. He has a sidekick or a henchman who is Mammoth. So I have Gizmo and Mammoth in this show fighting off against Cyborg. Silas Stone is sort of the character that's trying to help Victor, but Victor is just not accepting it. Sarah Charles is very much the love interest of Victor, and we also get Sarah's sister, LaTanya Charles, as another major supporting character. And I very much wanted to pad out Cyborg's supporting cast with characters that did know Cyborg in the comics, but also with LaTanya, she's someone that's not really fully connected with Cyborg, at least based off of my knowledge. I don't think she's fully connected to Cyborg in the comics, but I very much wanted her because of who she becomes in the future. I wanted her to be connected to Cyborg because I feel like it doesn't make any sense that her character isn't connected to Cyborg when the character she becomes in the future should be. If that makes sense. You'll understand when I get to season 2. But yeah, she's someone that very much wasn't originally connected to Cyborg, but now I've made them connected to each other. But yeah, I know that's a lot of rambling, but I think that this would be a good direction to go with Cyborg. And also, I love Gizmo's relationship with Cyborg in the Teen Titans animated show. And though I'm not using that relationship because I'm not having Gizmo being like a 10-year-old kid, he is very much a grown adult like in the comics. But I very much wanted this direction of Gizmo versus Cyborg being two people who are like the smartest people in the room being like butting heads against each other. And then we would get sort of a final fight with Cyborg against Gizmo and Mammoth, with Cyborg able to take out both of them. They both get arrested, neither of them dies, only Robert dies because Gizmo does presses the red button and just deactivates him. So yeah, that's what I would do with Cyborg Season 1. For Cyborg Season 2, we get sort of, which would be coming out after the entire Darkseid thing, which the synopsis is, Victor Stone, aka Cyborg, has come to realize that he has been accepted as himself, because this is also set after the Titans limited series. He realizes there is nothing wrong with him, However, a person from his past tries to take what Darkseid is given and turn everyone against him. This person is Ronald Evers, another cyborg. So very much Darkseid has turned Ron Evers into another cyborg. Again, Ron Evers is another character from the comics that is another cyborg. Cyborg has a lot of antagonists that are just cyborgs. So I just had to work with what I got there, and so he's fighting a lot of cyborgs. But also, another major development is LaTanya Charles becomes Cyborg Girl, and Cyborg Girl is one of Wonder Woman's antagonists. And so I was just thinking, well, since her character is technically related to Sarah Charles, why isn't she a cyborg antagonist? So that's what I just did. I just made her a cyborg antagonist. And though Ron Evers would die in the show, her character would get arrested, because I very much just wanted to just have all the bad guys have a satisfying conclusion, because the Netflix shows really didn't have satisfying conclusions for a lot of these characters, because they just ended. And so for me, that's just hindsight, being able to tie up the loose ends. And so it's very much Victor Stone going up against his old friend Ron and LaTanya, who was previously an ally, and Victor trying to work with Sarah and his dad, trying to make sure that he can stop these two bad guys. Also, we get the Iron Fist analog making a guest starring appearance in this show, because the Iron Fist analog is somehow connected to a lot of these characters by happenstance. But that's just what happens when you're this character. But yeah, this is Cyborg Season 2. There's really not much else to go in depth about. Like, a lot of these shows, I'll be honest, I didn't put in a lot of thought because they're series. And so I feel like if you want to try to get a series, if you go too much into depth with a series, you're slowly gonna just map out the entire series, where for me it's just, here's the basic idea of what I would do with the series. This is what I would do for this season. Cool? Like it? Cool. Let's move on to the next season. Let's just get the basic idea out. And then if anyone's interested in like fleshing it out, you can go ahead and do that. That's something you can do. But yeah, that's Cyborg Season 2. And let's move on to the Iron Fist analog, which, if you hadn't guessed it already, then I'm going to tell you right now, the Iron Fist analog is Beast Boy. Beast Boy is getting his own show, and it's 2 seasons. And I love Beast Boy. I love Beast Boy so much. I think Beast Boy deserves all the love in the world. And so we're getting a Beast Boy show, and the synopsis for Beast Boy Season 1 is this. Garfield Logan was a normal kid until he was infected with a disease by a green monkey. After his parents died, he was saved and taken in by a group of heroes called the Doom Patrol. However, one day, they all end up dying to a villain known as General Zol. Years have passed, and General Zol seems to be trying to finish the job by taking out the last member of the Doom Patrol. General Zol is now joined by a pair of mercenaries called Fear and Loathing. Now, Fear and Loathing are characters that were very much in the original Beast Boy miniseries back in the early 2000s. They were characters that were trying to kill Beast Boy, and I very much wanted to bring them in. General Zol is a classic Doom Patrol villain, and Beast Boy is very much just with his cousin Matt Logan, and they're just trying to get away and try not to be seen. A lot of this series in particular, especially this season, is told in flashbacks, mainly because I wanted the Doom Patrol to be something from his past and not his present. And so a lot of this show is told in flashbacks about his time into the Doom Patrol. Whenever a reference to the Doom Patrol is done, you see a flashback of him with the Doom Patrol, like Rita, Steve Dayton, Cliff Steele, and Larry Traynor. So very much the core team that I show in the flashbacks are Elastigirl, Mento, Robot Man, and Negative Man. And those are the 4 characters that we mainly see from the Doom Patrol that died. And that actually happened in the comics. The Doom Patrol died to the character of General Zol. And I very much wanted to have that be the main reason for this Beast Boy TV show of General Zol. Just his entire purpose is trying to kill Beast Boy. He's hated the Doom Patrol so much that he's wanted to kill the final member of the Doom Patrol for so long, but he's always been unable to do it. And so this is sort of the point where it's like, oh, I finally have the opportunity. I finally found him. I am with these two mercenaries, Fear and Loathing, and we're gonna kill Beast Boy. And Beast Boy is trying to evade it. He's afraid of fighting General Zod because of his PTSD and his survivor's guilt. But then we ultimately get to the final episode where Beast Boy is able to finally overcome all of that and find a way to overcome it and become every beast you can think of, and then just wreak havoc on these people that are trying to kill him. Ultimately, Fear and Loathing do get arrested, but General Zod dies of natural causes. He's like, Beast Boy is getting ready to kill him, but he's like, no, I'm not gonna do it. And then General Zod just has a heart attack because he's an old man. And so yeah, that's how Beast Boy Season 1 ends. And then we go over to Beast Boy Season 2, which is like this. The synopsis is: Garfield Logan, aka Beast Boy, had been trying to find his place in life after the events of Titans. After Trigon made him relive the death of his former family, he's been trying to find a way to keep helping people in this dark side control world. Now he has to fight two former foes that have been controlled by the anti-life equation to help Darkseid: the Brain and MrEliMac. So this is very much a enemies of the Doom Patrol and of Beast Boy. MrEliMac and the Brain have come back and they're wanting to take out Beast Boy. But this is also the season where we see Dr. Niles Calder, aka the Chief, finally come back to Beast Boy. And this is sort of the season where we get the new version of the Doom Patrol, and very much Beast Boy helping out Niles Calder and Matt Logan, Garfield's cousin, helping out Niles Calder put together a new Doom Patrol. And it's sort of a team of happenstance, of the Chief very much saying, I don't want to put this team back together, you saw what happened last time, and Beast Boy saying, well, I was able to overcome that guilt, I was able to overcome that PTSD, there is a way to do it, and I think we need to. And so we get new characters, or not new characters, but new characters for the Doom Patrol, which the new Doom Patrol would be Niles Calder, aka the Chief, is the leader, Buddy Baker, aka Animal Man, Dorothy Spinner, Arani Desai, aka Celsius, and Kay Callis, aka Crazy Jane. So those are very much the team of the Doom Patrol, and after MrEliMac and the Brain are defeated, that's the end of Beast Boy. Beast Boy is able to go out into the sunset. That's when we get him making the guest appearance on Cyborg, and then he makes the cameo appearance on Raven, because in my mind, Raven and Beast Boy have a romance, and that's why they're so connected with each other. And very much this show is very much about being able to bring a family together. Even though it may be an unlikely family, a family is able to get back together nonetheless. And Beast Boy is able to stop the Brain and MrEliMac, a new Doom Patrol is created, and Garfield is able to move on with his life. And that's Beast Boy Season 2. And then we move on to the Defenders analog, which I've been saying multiple times, it is the Titans. And the synopsis for the Titans is, which you've seen multiple characters from the show already pop up, and now we're officially getting into the synopsis, which is: an alien by the name of Starfire arrives in Bloodhaven trying to find the spawn of the demon. Dick Grayson, aka Nite-Wing, discovers her and decides to help. They find Rachel Roth, aka Raven, and Starfire tries to kill her. Dick tries to fight her off, but this causes Victor Stone, aka Cyborg, and Garfield Logan, aka Beast Boy, to interfere. Unfortunately, the demon, Trigon, is released by accident, and the 5 heroes must join forces to stop Trigon. So I've been making references to Trigon throughout this entire thing because of the stuff in Raven, but very much it's the Trigon versus the Titans storyline. That is the main storyline of the Titans show. It's Nite-Wing, Raven, Cyborg, Beast Boy, and Starfire going up against Trigon and the spawn of Trigon, aka the sons of Trigon, who were in the Titans 2008 comic book, which were Jacob, Jesse, and Jared Trigon, for lack of a better term. And so it's the Titans going up against these evil forces and trying their hardest to beat them. Ultimately, they do beat him, but there are a lot of stuff that happens that I can't fully remember what I originally planned. I just know that the Titans come together. They originally are at odds with each other. Again, that's why Starfire specifically tries to help Raven, because she's like, oh, I tried to kill you. I think I need to help you now. And so in Season 2 of Raven, that's why Starfire is trying to help Raven a lot, especially with Starfire very much being like, I understand what your father was, and now I'm going to help you try to control what he was. And we've sort of stopped your dad, so I trust you. And we very much get the continuation of them just working as a team, them becoming friends, and them stopping and banishing Trigon once and for all, and destroying Jacob, Jesse, and Jared. We get the supporting characters of Bridget Clancy, Amy Rohrbach, Sarah Charles, Raven's foster mother, and Matt, Garfield's cousin. They're all major characters in this, but it's very much just the main 5 Titans coming together and stopping Trigon. And I very much wanted this team to be the classic 2003 animated show team, because I feel like a lot of people who grow up with that show would very much appreciate this team in particular to be the main team of Titans. And I think a lot of people would also enjoy that, hey, this is the story that they're doing, this is the Trigon story, I remember growing up and watching this, and so that's the story that we're telling. However, whenever we do an episode of, oh, someone needs to go and save Raven from the evil place, it's not going to be Dick Grayson that saves him. It's going to be Beast Boy. That has been a major contention that I've had for a long time. I don't think Dick Grayson should have saved Raven in that episode in Season 4 of the animated Teen Titans show. I think it should have been Beast Boy, because I feel like Beast Boy had a more emotional connection to Raven than Dick Grayson did. So that's the big change that would happen. Beast Boy would go save Raven, because that is my stance and I'm putting my foot down. And so yeah, the Titans beat Trigon, they go save the day, and then they go their separate ways so they can have the rest of the shows and have a great time about it. Also, Darkseid happens, so they gotta save their own particular locations. And that's the Titans Limited series. But now we're moving on to the final one, the Punisher analog, which I said all the way back in Nite-Wing Season 2, Deathstroke the Terminator. So we're on Deathstroke the Terminator Season 1, and the synopsis goes as such. Slade Wilson has been on the run since his dealings with Nite-Wing. Now he tries to exit the mercenary business. However, a former ally of his, David Kane, is trying to force him back to finish a contract. David threatens Slade's family to make sure he gets it done. And so very much it's... the main mission is just Deathstroke is forced to go kill someone because David Kane is threatening to kill his family, which is his estranged wife and his kids Grant and Rose. However, the big thing in this entire thing is his eldest son Joe is dead. He's already dead, and that's sort of why he got into the mercenary business to start with. And now that Deathstroke is trying to get out of it, he's forced back in. And so he gets his team together. Billy Wintergreen is one of the main ones. Another one is Squirrel, who's sort of like the tech guy behind it. And he goes to try to kill this guy. However, they do a big double cross where Deathstroke is like, nope, I'm not going to kill these guys. I'm going to go kill David Kane instead. And so we get a big fight near the end of the show of David Kane versus Deathstroke. And what happens? Deathstroke unalives David Kane. And that's the show. That is Season 1 of Deathstroke the Terminator, because I didn't know what else to do with Deathstroke, and also trying to make an analog for Deathstroke, or make a show for Deathstroke, it's a little difficult. Because Deathstroke is a character that I very much prefer to be a villain, but I'm understanding what DC was trying to do at the time of making him more of a anti-hero, so I'm trying to make it all work, and that's what I got for you. For Season 1 at least. And now we move on to Season 2, which would be the final, sort of one of the major final Netflix show, and also the Darkseid stuff is also here as well. So we go on, the synopsis is, after discovering his son Joe is alive, Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, travels across the world trying to find him. However, a former ally named Only Drago has a son and is working with the Apocalyptians. Now, Deathstroke must fight off a former ally and the forces of Darkseid to get his son. And so very much, the story is just Deathstroke is trying to kill a former ally of his to get his son back, because he wants his family back together again. And that's very much what happens. He travels the world. This is more of a globe-trotting season than any of the Punisher shows, and he has his team together, and they go off to get Joe back, and that's what happens. He gets his son back, he kills one of the main henchmen of Drago, and then he kills Drago, and he fights off some Apocalyptians as well. And that's very much Deathstroke Season 2. Again, Deathstroke is a little bit harder to do a show on, since I'm having to try to find a way to make it work in my head. And that's very much the Netflix shows. If they were DCCU, those were my thoughts on it. What did you think? Was there anything that you would have preferred differently? Is there anything you would have changed? If so, let me know in the comments down below, because there are a lot of things that I occasionally look back and just think, man, that wasn't as fleshed out as I wanted it to be, but it's still pretty good in my opinion. But again, that's just me talking from my own bias. Next week, I'm going to be touching the Hulu shows, which, one commenter mentioned in the ABC shows. I sort of gave it away by accident. So yeah, I hope you're all ready for that, because I'm ready to sort of put an end to this little chapter in the what if the MCU was the DCCU. I love doing these videos. I love doing these videos for you all, and getting all the comments of wondering what I would have done for the shows. It meant so much to me, and I'm glad I'm finally being able to tell you all. But until next time, I hope you all remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the video. That way you can be up to date with all the videos I have here on the channel. Also, hit the notification bell. That way you can be notified whenever a new video like this comes your way. But until next time, I've been MrEliMac. You've been the audience. I hope you all have a great rest of the day.